Hi, my friends. I am Jen Schlueter. I'm Dean of Graduate Studies at Columbus College of Art and Design. And I am delighted to welcome you all to this event, a very casual but juicy conversation between Bevan Bloemendaal and Christian Davies, which is part of the CCAD Knows Retail webinar series that features industry leaders who share their insight about the retail landscape and what's on its horizon. Before we hop in and I introduce these two amazing humans, I just want to share a few housekeeping notes. So first of all, we're recording this so that we can share it on our website for those who aren't able to join us. We're in a webinar format, which everyone knows what those are because we're 18 months, 20 months into this pandemic. And so all your lines are muted and videos are off, but the speakers are on. And so please use the chat function or the Q&A all the way throughout to add your questions and your thoughts. We will definitely have a Q&A at the end. And if stuff comes up as they're chatting, we'll pop that in there as well. Now, I am very excited to introduce today's speakers. So, or conversants, let's go with that. Today, Bevan Bloemendaal is with us, who serves on the advisory board for the MPS and retail design at CCAD. He was vice president of global environments at Timberland, and in that role, he was responsible for the brand's retail experience, both in the physical and digital space worldwide through Timberland retail stores, franchisees, distributors, and wholesale environments. More importantly, he is obsessed with creating strategic and innovative design solutions for store design, photography, brand storytelling in a cluttered retail and digital landscape. Christian Davies is also with us today. He's a visionary creative leader with over 30 years working in retail, restaurant, hospitality, and experiential industries across the globe. He is skilled in strategy, innovation, design, and implementation with over 100 design awards, working for everything from disruptive startups to the very top of the Fortune 500. He's a keynote and session speaker at every major retail conference in the US, and his approach centers on navigating the future in this time of seismic change. I am just really proud to be in this space at all. Please join me in welcoming Bevan and Christian as they converse about the retail experience, frictionless and sticky.
Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much. I mean, Christian, this is crazy different for us. No slides. I'm almost feel like there's part of me missing. So
no slides and two of the shyest guys in the world.
I'm so glad to see you, my friend. It's fantastic. I appreciate taking the time to, for both of us to be on this. This is great.
It's good to see you too. I think what we're trying to talk about today is a combination. It's really a combination of sort of our personal relationship and time together and what we've done in the industry, but also the changes that we're seeing going on out there, because it is a crazy, crazy, crazy time. But I did think I'd start with how you and I got together.
Oh my God, a little love fest going on here right now.
22 years.
Yes.
22 years ago. So I was working on the Timberland account, and I'd actually moved my entire team to New Hampshire to service this account. So it's a big deal. And then we had a change into the guard, and this new guy came in, and I got summoned to this big meeting. Do you remember who was in the room? I thought it was Claire Spofford and somebody from agency relations.
It was totally, a group of people. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I remember that day. Yeah, definitely Claire. We might have had, definitely Claire.
So I'm, terrified, and he's late, which, is great. It's like sitting in the dentist's office, and then he rolls up and he walks in the room, and anybody knows Bevan, like, he explodes into rooms. So he walks into the room, and you had two signature pieces of clothing that you wore at Timberland. You had the orange leather pants and you had an orange sweater. And I think this was the orange sweater. And anyway, he barrels in the room, sticks his arm out across the table, and he says, hello, Christian, I'm your new worst nightmare. And I must have looked like I'd been hit in the face because my jaw's on the floor. And then he has that infectious laugh and he bursts out laughing. And that was our first time. And then the funniest part about this story is 2 days later, I'm a really, really bad account manager. Like, I'm horrible at that. So my team are like, did you send him an email? So I'm like, oh shit, I've got to send him an email. So I sent him this email, one of those like, so good to meet you, like, looking forward to the partnership. And I spelt his name wrong. But the funniest part is I didn't spell Bloemendaal wrong. I spelt Bevan wrong. Because, my family's from Wales and Bevan's like a surname in Wales, but it's spelt with an I, so Bevin. And so I sent him this email going, dear Bevan, thank you so much for the meeting the other day. And his response, the subject line was just WTF, but it was the long version of WTF. And then when Bevan gets mad at people, he does these he's got two tells. One is he drops his voice like an octave. And the second is he gets very, very specific with like the words that he says. So imagine an email that was dropped an octave. And then he started this email by saying, dear Mr. Davies, I would have hoped that someone who was hoping to create a burgeoning relationship with a brand of our stature would have been able to spell their client's name right. And I was just like, oh my God. So the first week.
You have painted such an ugly picture of me.
First week, well, I'm about to paint a nice one. So the first week was total disaster. I was like, we're so fired. We are so not going to get anywhere. And then this has gone on to become probably the best relationship in my 20, 30 years in this business. And what I would say about this guy, for those that don't know him, and anybody that's working in this strange world of retail, you find a lot of people. Which one are you from? Is it Iowa or Idaho? I can never remember.
Iowa.
Yeah. So I'll use a farming analogy. So you can find a lot of people who can plow a single furrow, right? And you can find a certain number of people who can plow that single furrow for a long time. So they're really, really good at something. And they're really, really good at it time and time and time again. But that's pretty rare. This guy can plow a field. He's the only person I have ever worked with who has the most ridiculous appetite for challenges. I mean, literally, I can remember evenings when me and him have been sitting in a bar somewhere and he's gone, I'm doing this now. And I'm like, do you even have a clue how to do that? And he's like, no, but I'll figure it out. And he does. So all of the things that were in the intro, like when he said to me, I'm just going to take over photography for the whole thing. I'm like, how? And he goes, well, we're going to do it. We'll figure it out. So he has this incredible appetite, this incredible breadth.
There's a bit of like-mindedness here, though, Christian. I'm going to give you a little bit of love fest at the same time for these folks.
You have to say nice things about me. Hang up.
Conversely, I think that, that first meeting, while it was like rushed, a new brand, all that, here was a man that was in the room that, first of all, was very, and I think that a lot of people think I am too, a little bit feeling of unapproachability. And the moment that we had this conversation that we started, and you say that I was like your worst nightmare, the words that flew out of your mouth were music to my ears. I felt heard. I felt energized. I felt alive. There was all of a sudden somebody that, clearly I had a creative crush immediately going on. And it was like, and that's what precipitated this whole entire relationship of 22 years. I mean, you are an icon in this business, and I'm proud to be able to call you friend. So the idea of friendship and relationships, and here we're talking about frictionless and sticky. Those are the two things that the two most introverted people I know of, you and me, we would stand in the corners. We don't like public speaking. Doing this right now is almost shaking me to my core.
I have an ulcer.
Yeah. So the idea that people think that this is easy, I mean, I admire, everything that you've done. The idea of frictionless, we try to make our relationship and our friendship as frictionless as possible, but at the same time, aren't we trying to be sticky about it? Because we also want to make impressions and we also want to stay friends. We want to.
Yeah, I've been chewing on this. I've been thinking on this since we came up with the topic, because there is a part of this that's talking about as it relates to retail, and we'll get to that. But I was thinking about the work, like there's been periods when you and I have had very calm waters, like very frictionless workflow, extremely good. And that's great. And we get a lot done. But it's not the work that I remember. I mean, strangely enough, the work that I remember is the stuff that was really difficult at the time. the stuff where I thought the brief was kind of impossible and we were going to have to jump through crazy hoops. And I remember sometimes you and I, a lot of sparks flying, at times. And I think that's the work that, that sort of sticks with you a little bit. And so as we think about our dear future students on the phone, I do think there's a conversation about having a sort of openness to things getting a little sticky and getting a little messy and getting a little difficult, because in some ways, unless you're prepared to get onto that uncomfortable spot, you're never going to really be able to go sort of beyond, which is, and again, that sort of circles me back around to the last 2 years that we've had. I think as an industry, we sort of faced down this series of sort of almost unsurmountable challenges, and we've got a lot more left ahead of us. And I do think it's going to take some new thinking and some new work. You and I chatted the other day about that piece that you wrote for your church, where you were talking about normal or not. I thought that'd be an interesting thing as well for us to cue into. Do you have it?
I do. I can get it. What I wanted to also just touch on is the fact that, when you said the idea of, sticky and frictionless, the idea of sticky moments are the ones that we remember the most. And those moments that tested each of our elasticity with regards to our friendship, whether elasticity in our creative capabilities, everything. It was that stretching and coming back and stretching and coming back that I remember the most. And there were, look at all the milestones that we hit in Timberland, the times that we've worked together and different agencies that you've been in, and the same brand that I've been at. But the idea of coming back together, stretching ourselves, it was pretty amazing. So, and I say the same thing to all of my friends out there and the future students. That is so important to grab a hold of. The quote that Christian was talking about is a quote that says, "Nothing should go back to normal. Normal wasn't working. If we go back to the way things were, we will have lost the lesson. May we rise up and do better."
Yeah.
And I think that is a kind of a perfect summation of this past year and what we need to do. Rise up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I freezing?
You are a little bit, but it's okay. We can hear you. I hope everybody can hear me. Somebody write in the chat, yes, I can hear you. So I know that you can hear me. I've been thinking a lot about, let's call it December of 2019, or right around that point, right pre-pandemic. And thinking about what was keeping us up at night then, because we had no clue what was just around the corner. And thinking about how I was pretty worried, I think at that point, that retail was already sort of flattening out a little bit. Like there wasn't much being done that I was getting sort of stoked and excited about. And so sort of not really knowing what was coming in March and what we were all going to have to deal with. It's interesting. It's very interesting to look back on that period now, I think, and even to read things that were written then about retail. To say, were we really, and as you said, why are we so excited, or why is there such a movement to get back to December of 2019 when actually it wasn't that great? And I think the one thing that I would want to say to anybody either embarking on a career in this or in a career in this is we were complaining a lot in 2019 that the handcuffs were on, that we couldn't free up and we couldn't do what we wanted to do. And we didn't have the technology to do what we wanted to do, or that we didn't have the permission from the customer. And that's all gone. Like we have permission to do anything that we want right now. And in many ways, I think, I don't say the bar's been raised, but expectation has been raised. I wrote an article last month where I was like, the one thing I think the pandemic has taught me is that I refuse to get off the couch for crappy food or mediocre products sold to me by people that don't care about them in environments that I don't want to be in. I'm not going to go back to that. I'm not going to go back to mediocre. And I think that is a brilliant quote that you came up with, that normal is just not good enough anymore, and we're going to have to reinvent it. So that's really, I'm sort of recently into a new job, and that's the thing that I'm most excited about now is imagining sort of a new horizon and new places that we can take it.
mean, I think you know me really well on the idea that I equate everything to simple life, and to me, it's about relationship building. And our relationship building with our friends, our families. COVID has taught us a way different way of doing those things and the importance of those things. How are we in each other's business all the time? Meaning you have folks that were in each other's shorts all the time with regards to Zoom calls. Where did you separate that? Where was the friction? Where was the stickiness there? How did you start making some different arrangements through this past 18 months that we've had? So to me, the idea of retail also is about creating those relationships and partnerships, with that consumer. So I kept thinking about this, it's like, are we really truly, you heard everything. We need to go frictionless. We need to go frictionless. And I was like, that means no rub, no emotion, getting it on time. If I see another, dispenser of, alcohol that I can put on my hands, it's like all of these things that we're choosing. I didn't have to get out of my sweatpants off the couch. But to me, that is where you just said, going back to mediocrity, and we do need that stickiness. We do need to have that opportunity of really talking about, who's doing it out there and really is creating memories in our minds right now as retailers. Whether
I use the example of the pet store. So the pet store is one business that I think a lot of people are talking about automating. A lot of people are talking about making this frictionless, right? And they've got a point, So I was at the pet store on Sunday, and everything that I buy from the pet store is really heavy, and I buy shit tons of it, and I buy exactly the same thing every time I go, because my cats and dogs and my snake don't change what they're eating. The snake eats the same rats every week. He's not fussy. And the funny thing about it is, I don't even decide what is bought at the pet store. The vet decides what is bought at the pet store. So in this frictionless world, you could imagine the vet calling the pet store saying, I've got Mr. Davies' order. The pet store saying, we're going to ship it to his front porch. It's all frictionless. The problem with that scenario is then I don't get to see my kittens. And the reason that I go to the pet store is to see the kittens. And that is this moment that I have every 2 weeks when I go see these little babies and start imagining I'm going to have one of these soon. I read the little story on the card. I get to poke my fingers through the cage. But I'm being slightly facetious, but that is a memorable, resonant, sticky moment to me that I think is something that I would not want completely out of my life. Where I get fascinated, and I think it's a question for the chat, maybe at the end, we are definitely moving down this path. Retail is polarizing between frictionless and sticky. Frictionless experience is largely automated. You know what size you are, you know what color you are, you know how often you need it. You just want it on your front porch, one click, simple as possible. Often facilitated by algorithms and bots. I can't tell you how many times something pops up going, if you like this, you'd like this. These ads, this, that, and the other. And that is wildly different. Go ahead.
Conversely, though, there are brands out there right now that are really making it sticky, So to your point, we don't need all of this automated stuff. We do to certain degrees. Whether I do need to have that 30-pound bag of dog food directly to my house, it's fine. I didn't want to carry it myself. But the memory of the kitten, great. But the memory of those, let's talk some brands. I'm just going to name them. And if they're on the call, great. For me, Coach, is one of the most sticky brands that comes to my mind right now. They are doing an amazing job with pop-ups, their environments, their visual merchandising, any interactivity, their collaborations. They are hitting all the touch points. Burberry, the idea of, Snapchat, what they've done in their rooms right now in creating that stickiness, that to me, and those are two kind of luxury brands, and we can go all the way down from luxury all the way down into some very simple, opportunities. Cannabis world, everything. The idea of that, creating that memory of wanting to participate back with my friend Christian. I want to participate back with that brand. That is a relationship and partnership, and that's through experiences and memories that we're creating.
And as we think about physical stores, you can do it across all channels, but it works particularly well in physical stores. And I've been using this this sort of analogy of trying something on for size. in which I think there is the actual trying it on for size, like does it fit, does it work, does it, but there's also that cultural trying it on for size. Is this a brand that I can have a lasting relationship with? Do I like the people? Do I like the space? Do I like the way that it feels? And so yeah, I think that's the exciting thing about Sticky to me, is its perfect home is the physical built immersive environment, which is exciting for everybody on this call, I would hope.
I'll do a little plug, because, and I don't think Jen's gonna, be, upset about it, but, I'm speaking at the International Retail Design Conference, and we'll have a panel on salutogenic design. And the idea of we have to create spaces that are healthier. We have to create spaces that are going to be mentally, physically, spiritually enlightening with regards, because that's what people are looking for right now. Why should I not buy it off of the internet and have it delivered to my door? I want the stickiness that's going to happen at the store. How can I collaborate? How can I learn something? How can we educate our consumers in a totally different way? Is mind-blowing to me with regards to the opportunities out there. It's not about just transactions anymore. It's about transformation. And I think that that's a huge shift from transactional to transformational. And that's going to come through. Yes, we do need some frictionless. Yes. But that's where the stickiness, I think, is going to come into play. That's going to really, you just said it. I want this relationship. I want this partnership with these people, friends. I want brands to be friends of mine.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up the responsibility aspect of it as well, because again, I think we're at a dead end now. Anybody that read that climate report last week, time's up, not even it's coming. No, it's here, and I think I'm doing a similar speech towards the end of the year, and thinking back to that 2019 moment again, and the drumbeat that we were running our business on, our industry on, was bigger, better, faster, and more. That's what we were talking about constantly. And I think imagining a pivot of that, where bigger becomes smaller stores, smaller footprint, perhaps less what we have, where better becomes more meaningful. It's just better doesn't mean anything, but more meaningful, more resonant, more connected. Faster becomes slower, by which I don't mean slower to market. I mean slower, more enjoyable, more paced experiences, and then more becoming less. We've got to figure out a way to deliver all of that without burning the planet up, and I think those are the tenets that to me are fueling that next generation of what we're going to do.
I mean, those values, and I know you are the same, those values that working for Timberland for 21 years, the ideas, the values of really taking care of Mother Earth. What are we doing differently? What choices are we making? That is our own personal values also that we need to think. You touched on it. I really think this is about building trust. We have to rebuild trust, us as brands, in experiences, in retail locations, in product selections, and what have you. Build trust back for this, group of folks. That, meaning not group of folks, the consumers.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we're going to then create those memories and that partnership and relationship that, I want to be part of your life, and I want you to be part of my life. So again, I go back to this little simplicity thing about our friendship. I can have a conversation with you today and pick one up 6 months from now, and it will be like we have never lost contact.
Yeah.
Or I can have a project with you and we are, balls to the walls on literally working through all of the complexity of this. And that's the beauty part of it. And I think that that's what we can expect, the consumer expectations right now in all of us, in creating that trust again.
Yeah, I thought you were going to spring one on me today. I was like, he's going to say to me, what's the favorite thing we ever worked on? And my answer was going to be the next one. No, I'm serious, because anytime I pick the phone up with you, it's always like, oh, shut up. Seriously, so it's going to be great. And that I think is testament to it. The other thing I wanted to tie in there as well, that again, I'm trying to sort of cast my mind back to when I was a student, which I think there was different money when I was a student. It's that long, but there certainly wasn't any of the things that we have these days in terms of phones and whatever. But thinking back to that sort of period and trying to imagine what it was going to be like working in this business. The other thing that you've always done around this idea of relationships is you've always built such a brilliant team. And I have always felt that the coolest thing about what we've been working on is that the teams work together so well and they have relationships. And in fact, they probably talk an awful lot more than we do. So, you know, we can bang on about our relationship, which I think is completely brilliant. But I think about the people on my team who would network with a person on your team, and then their careers would run in tandem as they move through the various industries. So I always thought that was also quite a rare thing. I mean, I've worked with some fantastic clients with some brilliant people underneath them, but that sense of family that you built there, you know, that was very unique, especially for a corporate side design agency, which you had under your belt, and a big one. I mean, I would always applaud that as well. Back to that concept of relationship building.
Well, thank you, Christian. I mean, it is, but that again, that's the important part of it, is like, first of all, admitting the fact that you can't have all Christians and Bevans out there.
Oh God, you wouldn't want it.
Exactly. But my point is that oftentimes we want that because we are the individuals that want, let me just handle it myself, I'll get it done faster kind of thing. But that's not any growth opportunities, and that's not building relationships. So yeah, no, completely agree. Who on your radar right now is doing it for you? You know, with regards
to, I mean, I'm not just going to do a pimp because they're one of our clients, but I'm quite excited about the online retailers that are coming into physical spaces.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so Everlane, I think, is doing a killer job right now.
Bang. Yeah.
The funniest thing about Everlane and Warby and those guys is, if you haven't shopped on them, shop on them online, because their online presence is superb. And again, it's little touches. They do things so well. Like, how do they always remember me and nobody else ever remembers me? You know, how am I always having to put passwords into certain things and other things are much more fluid? But I also think with those brands, there is an editorial component to their online, you know, where they have a voice. They almost feel like a magazine rather than a website.
Storytelling.
But then they have an absolute understanding that a website is not an app and an app is not a retail store. And they know the difference between the three and why you would have each one of them. So I was shopping in Everlane last week, and the level of customer service at retail for a brand that didn't grow up in physical retail, I'm like, you're hiring the right store managers, you're hiring fantastic people who understand fit and understand a guy who's not a particularly intuitive shopper. They were brilliant, you know, and I was like, you guys didn't even grow up in traditional bricks and mortar, and you're so good at that. The other one I think who's doing a really nice job is Allbirds, you know, and I think it's early days for them at retail. But again, a brand that I think is very much on that smaller, more meaningful, slower and less. You know, they took 2 years to develop their first product, you know, and in that category, the average timescale to develop a product is like 4 months. And they were like, no, we're going to take 2 years. We're going to get it right. We're not going to bring it to market until it's right. And then we're going to limit our product selection to 4. And that's going to be the ones that we're going to focus on. So I also think they're doing a fab job. So those 3 would be fairly high up on my list. But then I would just say one last thing, just in terms of awesome shopping experience. I had a fantastic one like a month ago, shopping for makeup with my daughter in Nordstrom. And the lady that we had at the Chanel counter was superb. And again, this is one of those ones where you're like, it almost feels like a memory of what great retail was when great retail was great. I mean, first of all, wasn't listening to a thing I said, which is a great idea. But more importantly, I think to your point, you know, listening to what my daughter was saying. You said you talked about feeling heard. She felt heard with this person who was not trying to push product on her, saying, what do you like? And based on what you like, you could try this or you could try this. I thought it was lovely. And that was a reminder of one of the greats, I think, still knocking it out of the park.
I think what you just touched on is really important for everybody to understand, that it's, you know, a relationship is multifaceted. A relationship is about how you speak to somebody. A relationship is how you act in front of somebody. A relationship is how you portray your values and other things, to folks. So it's not just about the store experience, although that is the house that we are building to be able to draw people to. And I think a lot of folks feel oftentimes that digital is first. Digital is incredibly important, absolutely. But the physical space itself can drive to digital also, instead of digital always driving to physical. And I think that those are the elements that employees, the elevator speeches, the knowledge that they have, the hiring capability of these folks, and making sure that they are advocates for the brand. All of these things are all part of this notion about what we're talking about, the stickiness of relationships. And that is, it can't be undermined. I mean, I'm not going to plug, Home Depot, but, I busted my, I have an electric lawnmower, a rider lawnmower, and I hit a stump and my blades started making crop circles in my yard. I went to Home Depot and I said, hey, can I get the blades changed? I brought it there. They said, we don't normally do rider lawnmowers, but this gentleman said, leave it with me. And I left no paperwork. Zero paperwork, my name on a piece of paper and a phone number. And I was taking pictures of my lawnmower, to make sure, and my watch to make sure I had the date and time. This man calls me a day later and says, your lawnmower's ready. I said, how much do I owe you? Nothing.
Oh my God.
I was blown away.
That's so good.
So many letters. This man was got to be in his 70s. Working at Home Depot, that changed my blades, charged me nothing. I wrote the managers of Home Depot, and that was frictionless, but it was sticky.
Yeah.
That was amazing to me.
And the key to that story to me, and you and I have talked about this so many times, is him being empowered to be able to do that. To be able to make that decision without having to run it up the flagpole and get 15 people to, no, they're saying to him, look, if somebody comes in and you can help them out and you can fix it, it's no charge, and I think that again, it just feels to me like the way things were when things were good. So going back to that that concept about how do we improve things, how do we get better always, how do we get better forward, I think is in many ways we may learn our lessons from the way things were, but we're not going to learn our lessons from December 2019. I think it is going back to some of that amazing kind of old school, sticky, brilliant retail. And Bevan wouldn't let me sort of throw this question out to the room, and of course, in my usual fashion, I'm going to do it anyway. But I think it asks that question of why do we have physical stores? Why do we have these spaces that we pay rent on and that we pay people to work in and that we pay to keep the lights on? What's the purpose of having these things? And I think the purpose has to be that sticky end of the spectrum. The purpose has to be making memories. I mean, I have stories, as I know my dear friend here does, about experiences at retail that, you take to the grave. I mean, these are things that it was like, oh my God, that was so incredible. That was so unbelievable. Somebody treated me so well, or I bought something that I loved so much, which stayed with me for the rest of my life. And I think it's one of the things that we often give ourselves a bad rap in retail, where we're always like, sort of got this kind of like, we're in a sales industry or something like that. No, we're in an industry that makes memories, as much as the restaurant industry makes memories, as much as the hospitality industry makes memories, when we do it well. And when we do it badly, and when we have a cold sort of not engaging experience, I think it's not something that you want to be involved in. But retail on its best day, it's a simple best day out you ever had. It's fantastic.
I think we're saying the same thing over and over again. It's a simple fact. It is a simple fact. Treat people with respect and kindness and create valuable emotions and memories for people. And I go back to that quote, nothing should go back to normal. Normal wasn't working. I mean, literally, no, it wasn't working. If we go back to the way things were, we will have lost the lesson. And there are so many lessons that I personally have learned these past 18 months on what can and cannot work. May we rise up and do better. And that's a call to arms. That's a call to action for anybody on this call and for you and I. This isn't about just doing the next store. This isn't about the next marketing campaign. This isn't about the next product line. This is about rising up and doing better for all of us, the world, each other, all of those things. And I'm going to end on, kind of this, softness here. I have appreciated you for 22 years. I appreciate this time. I mean, this opportunity that we can have right now and have a dialogue live in front of all these people, that's like sharing TikTok videos into people's lives. It's like they're all voyeurs into this conversation that we're having. And I love the fact, and I want all of us as industry colleagues, we need to do more of this. We need to stay connected. We need to share more. We need to share the challenges. They suck. We have some, hurdles to get over, but we also have ideas that can be manifested in some really beautiful ways. And, I don't know, I, for one, I love and appreciate all the continued support that you've given me, but also all of these people on the call. And for these students, what's your last word for these students that are going to sign up for this, amazing program with CCAD?
Yeah, I would say you could not have picked a better time. Me and this dude have been grinding away at this coalface for 30 years. And there have been times when our industry has been under threat, and it's been very, very difficult. It might feel like it's under threat right now, but I think it's the opposite. I have never felt more optimism. I have never felt more possibility that is on the table for what it is that we can do. And if you guys are designing things that look like things that we've seen before, that is not what we need. We need you to rethink this and to design things that are different. I'm going to tie a bow on that, just answering something that my good friend Steve Calhoun wrote in the comment. The digital thing is something that I think I've been thinking about, or actually working on a lot in the last 18 months, because we were forced to, do sort of very rapid pivot. And we did this thing in one of my previous lives where we made, touchless stores, essentially contactless environments, and we're forced to rely on digital a lot more. And I think what I learned through that process is that digital is still extremely important at retail. And it is still a part of what we are going to do, but it is not quite the holy grail that we thought it was going to be, because we've seen it. We've seen what it can do. We've seen what AR and VR and these type of things bring to a retail environment. Some of it is fun, and it depends on the category. There's more opportunity in some categories than others. But I do think we did get to kind of road test some of this thing and see things in real time. And I'm still, and this is not me being a Luddite and anti-technology guy, because I'm not, but I am still coming down heavily on the side of sensorial, to some of the things that Bevan's been saying. I want to touch things, I want to see things, I want to smell things, I want to taste things, I want to try things on. There's the possibility of digital enhancing that, and there is the possibility of digital getting in the way of that. It's a very seductive tool. And again, as you're thinking as young designers, imagining what the future looks like, I expect it to be a part of what you become fluent in, but it's not a cure-all. It's not a solve-all. And it certainly doesn't trump some of those resonant, human, connective, emotional moments.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing things going on in the chat right now with conversations going on. And I couldn't agree with you more. The idea of we're humans. At our core, we are human beings, and we need each other. We need this connective tissue with regards to, having these conversations, being able to talk, bitch, complain, whatever we want. The idea is that humanness needs to be exposed more out there, and that human interactivity. So, hey, for me, Jen, I'm done. Christian, thank you so much for this opportunity to have you face to face for a while. I mean, it's been a reliving of our past in a really good way. And oh, by the way, I'm not your worst nightmare. You have been my wonderful nightmare, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, and thank the two of you. I've been sitting here behind my screen having the best afternoon that I've had in the longest time. So this kind of conversation, this sort of like real experts in the space, sort of chewing over the key issues in the field. It's really what the MPS and retail design at CCAD is going to be all about. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat so people can take a peek at that. But I want to turn to some of the questions that we're seeing coming up here in the Q&A, so that maybe we can grab onto some of those things. So one of the things that folks are asking about here is that, so if we all agree that relationship is at the core of a great brand experience, and I suppose that's an if, right? We know when we feel it, and we feel it deeply. It resonates with who we are at our collective core, but why do you think that happens so infrequently? If that's the facts, why don't we do more of it?
I think the desire, obviously any brand would be crazy not to want it. It's very, very, very difficult to do. And it's very, very, very difficult to sustain. I mean, the minute you lose somebody who's an advocate and a brand builder, you know, what Bevan was saying earlier on about people who loving the product that they sell, takes a while to get them into that space where they truly can deliver that without looking like they're just reading from a card. And then you lose these people. So that I think is a tricky one. I also think though, this conversation about going back, and I really hate this phrase, so I'm going to apologize for using it, but I can't think of a better one, but this new normal thing, because I've just said that normal's not good enough, and he's right. But I do think though that there is an opportunity to say that interaction could be a slightly different thing going forward. One of the things that I think about these rooms, and Jennifer, I thank you so much for getting two white bearded gentlemen in a room together, but the difference between the way that I shop and the way that my daughter shops, she's kind of my truth sayer, 19 years old, and she has a completely different mentality. Like the funniest thing is trying to have a conversation with her about physical and digital, and she just looks at me like, what?
They're the same.
Like, you know, so that idea that engagement might be what is a meaningful engagement to us is extremely different than what is a meaningful engagement to her. Like, for example, there is an extended period of time when she enters a retail store when she does not want to be approached in any way, shape, or form. She's got eyes down on her phone. She does not want somebody to come up and talk to her. And if they do, she'll leave. You know, so the sort of the idea of the greeter or welcome to the store or thanks for coming is anathema to her. So I think that one of the things that a lot of brands are doing right now, some better than others, is trying to understand and unpick that generation and imagine, which may be a reason, David, why we're finding it a bit like the bar of soap in the shower. It's tricky to figure out exactly what it should be right now, but we'll get there, I think.
I also think, I mean, just add one quick comment on it. I think that if both are working, you know, simultaneously, the digital and the physical, I mean, I'm already got as much education as I need probably when I enter the physical store or vice versa. Yeah. And if we're doing it appropriately and right, we have to, on top of that, what's the cherry? What's the cherry on top of that cake? Those two things are table stakes at this point in time. But when I go to the store, what different thing do I have? What different experience do I have that I couldn't have gotten online or digital, or I didn't expect? So to me, it's also a hard thing for return on investment. How do you ram this up the ladder at a corporate level to say, you know, human feelings are important? You know, I mean, of course it's a given, but you know what? This has got to be enacted in every single thing that we do throughout our processes. What's in it for me? Sorry, hate to be selfish. What's in it for me?
Yeah, and I mean, if I was to say Holy Grail, to follow on from that, you know, because me and him had a conversation the other day where we were like, please never use the word omnichannel again, because it just drives me crazy. But Holy Grail to me is, because you've spent that time before you go to the physical store, wouldn't it be nice if the store knew why you were coming? Which is, by the way, not rocket science. So the store now knows why you're coming and could be prepared. And so now we have a situation, Bevan says it's all about him, where it literally is all about him. The minute he walks through the door, the cogs and the wheels in the background are now saying he's here, and we know why he's here, we know what he wants, and we've laid this out, we've got it ready for him, and this experience is now going to be all about Bevan. That to me is the Holy Grail, and I know from the work that we've been doing the last few years, it's not unattainable at all. It's just, it's a much more interesting proposition than omnichannel to me.
I love it. Well, then this is a corollary question, I think. If we were to try and think about what we could bring from the physical to make the digital stickier, what is a thing that we could move over or borrow into that space?
That's what I mean. That's one lens. The other lens that I was thinking, not to start writing briefs for these fantastic young people, but the other lens that I was chewing on was, is there a way to imagine a wholly frictionless environment that is actually sexy? Can we imagine something that has all of the seamlessness and smoothness and all this, as Bevan put it, the simplicity of life, but in some way we managed to activate that in a way that's emotionally resonant. And what
I think Burberry is a good example that they've kind of done that for their rooms. You don't have to have a sales associate.
Yeah.
But when you do want a sales associate and you get to that tier of you've spent enough money with us that you're going to get treated with kid gloves, and you get to go in these different rooms and they're all activated by these things. I think that's fantastic, and those are all opportunities. Let's bring it down to some levels of understand. If we could get just the verbal politeness out there, right now, people are just coming out of their couches, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
They are anxious to get out into the world. Hopefully, fingers crossed, with this variant doesn't take us for a tailspin again, but they are anxious to get out and experience things. What are you prepared to have them experience? Rise up, people, rise up. You can't do the same crap. So
this is what it's like working with him. So he constantly is doing this.
No.
Better, has to be better.
Well, and to your earlier point, this is all about making a difference. I mean, I have sat in, a keynote, from Christian and bawled my eyes out. Bawled. I was a baby in that keynote. But that was how many years ago? 4? Mm-hmm. 4 years ago, and it still is a memory in my head. That's what we need to leave with consumers. Like, what impact have I made on you through my brand, through my product, through my values, through what I'm doing to make a difference in the world, period.
Yeah, all right, well then let's try this. Can we think about how when a retail experience is crafted, how that experience can become a collaborative relationship or a space in which the sort of narrative is co-created, not something that's delivered to the customer, but that they are a participant in?
Wouldn't that just be the coolest thing, Christian? I mean, I would just absolutely have loved, and we honestly tried this at Timberland. It's like, why don't we do a store design or an experience or a pop-up that is led by the consumer? Led by these individuals that say, what, I would like to try, or I would, I've said it before. I would always tell the team, I want you to be a 2-year-old and ask, why not, what if? That is what consumers will tell us. Why can't I see things virtually? Or why can't I get my messages across? Or why can't you get me what I need before I even get into the store, as Christian was just saying?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago about trust. Retail's a funny business in the sense that there are certainly when it comes to experience design, I think we could try that. We could hand over the keys to the kingdom and we could say, tell us the experience that you want and we'll work together to build that. I think there are components of retail that are also about, I need help. And I might be dropping a very serious amount of money on this thing that I'm about to purchase. I need to know that it's legitimate, not a fake. It is what you say that it is. It is worth the money that I'm about to spend on it. And by the way, there's 3 of them and I can't choose. And help me. You've got to help me choose this. So I think some environment that may have an experience that's hugely built around customer needs, but then with that trust component built in, that what we sell you is what we're saying it is, and it will do what we say it's going to do, and we can help you decide and help you purchase something if you're a little unsure. I think that's another retail role too.
I agree. But think about the collaborations in general. I mean, whether it's footwear, apparel, or cars, or phone, whatever it is, the idea that we are collaborating with people that could be outside their discipline, of creativity, but they make things better. I mean, there are some horrible examples out there, but there are some really unique and crazy examples out there that are selling out immediately. Those can't be everything for you as a brand, but they can be that interactivity with regards to, I own part of this. I feel invested in this. Again, to your point, what we were talking about is you've now created a relationship and a partnership and trust that they allowed me in. They allowed me to change the recipe for the Krispy Kreme donuts, or they allowed me to come in and say, you know what, the artichokes really should be over by X in the grocery store. Those participatory, opportunities for us, hey, they go a long way, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add to Bevan's example of Burberry, the other thing that I think is so lovely about where they are right now, and they've not always been this way. The other cool thing about them is they've worn 1,000 faces. I mean, they've been a lot of different things at different points in their evolution, but
like Madonna changing her face.
Yeah, to be where they're at right now, and to have a real sense of joy and optimism and celebration about where we're at, I think is also in short supply right now. So I think trying to find brands that are not so worried and not so staring at their shoes and not so, caught in the headlights, to find somebody that says there's one way out of this and it's up. So again, ties back to that idea of better, but better doesn't just mean constant incremental improvement. It can also just mean soaring, and I watched that video of the Burberry one with the snowballs, hitting the street. It's one of the funniest things. It's so brilliant and so fun, and it's dancing and laughing and all of the things that you would want from a moment for a brand like that. And I think
for a heritage brand like that,
a heritage brand like that, a British heritage brand like that.
I know, stayed and true,
but yeah,
they've gone and really tried to capitalize on trying to meet everybody's demands, and they have the budgets to be able to do that potentially. But there are other, we could go on for hours. We could.
And we wondered how we were going to fill 30 minutes.
I know, and I would let you go on for hours. I think we have one more question or one more observation that I want to pitch to you, and then we're going to bring this to a semicolon, not a period, but a semicolon. So one person has written in saying that they've often wondered when retail spaces will leverage digital tech to transform the sensory experience, like on a weekly or like a daily basis, something more than changing lighting levels or swapping out signage, more analogous to how theater companies change the set at an intermission, for example. Do you have thoughts about that sort of frequency of turnover, real?
Yeah, so yeah, I do. So the question to me is not if we can do it, because we can do whatever we want right now. Technology has thoroughly caught up with our ambition. The question is, does what we are doing actually provide enhancement? Does it make something better? Or is it just change for change's sake, which is not what I'm certain we're suggesting here. But I think back to, and this is going back, Gallery 1 at Cleveland Museum of Art, which has probably been around for close to a decade. If you've not seen it, you should. But that to me was a fantastic example of how digital could truly enhance that journey through the museum without getting in the way of my interaction with the art. It didn't place a layer. That is the struggle that I have with a lot of what is happening right now. I mean, this is my current digital device that I use in stores, wherever. The minute we start putting screens and layers and things between me and the thing on the other side of this that I actually want to buy, then we're playing with fire. So I think, does the digital enhance the store environment? Does it allow me to get information that I couldn't get in other ways? Does it allow me to shop without people, if that's the way that I prefer to shop? All of those are interesting things to explore. It crosses a red line when it puts a layer of, particularly if that layer is artificial, if it promises something that isn't true. So, here, look at this amazing enhancement. Well, the product doesn't actually do that. It does that when I hold my phone up to it. Yeah. So I think, and again, I'm not trying to be a naysayer for technology in any way, shape or form. I'm just thinking more than ever, we need to be critical of it. We need to think it through. We cannot just be minority reporting our crap all the way through the retail environment, because that just gets irritating.
I only add, I agree with you. Number one, first of all, the idea of, we've tried so many different things, whether it's, my time at Timberland with regards to the storefront being almost a living organism based off of videos and mirrors and things like that, so that you could grab attention, to dressing rooms that you could change the weather inside the dressing room. So I could feel like, what does it look like on a cloudy day? What does it look like on a rainy day? What does it look like on bright sunshine? Do I look good, period, in it? Two, Christian, you and I did way back when, like 20 years ago, the whole store changed with regards to the lighting from sunrise to sunset. So as the store, no one's in the store that long. So we learned valuable lessons. Like, really, I'm going to expect you to stay in the store and know that my store changed the light from morning to night. But how can we capitalize on those moments that they are there and make instant changes? And that's what Burberry has done with their rooms. And that's where I think that you need to start looking. Now, I know that digital comes in a vast array, whether it's touch screens or kinetic energy on the walls, or, whatever you want. I think to drive that emotional, and I think that your question was really about theaters change the dynamic immediately within a room. All right. How can that be applied, whether that's through VR, whether that's through augment, whatever that can be. I think that there's still room to play there. I really do, to get that experience level to be something unique.
Fantastic. I really do have to bring this to a close now. I would prefer to not, but thank you so much to the two of you for giving us this sort of joyful afternoon. Thanks to all people who are here in the space with us. Please, if you have any questions about the Master of Professional Studies in Retail Design, check out our website. Here's my email address in the chat. You can reach out to me directly. And also come back every Tuesday, because we're going to be doing a conversation or a lecture in this vein all the way throughout this fall through the CCAD Knows Retail series. So thank you for being present. Thank you both, and have a great rest of your afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Christian, love you, brother.
See you, buddy. Beers are on me next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.